Hello and welcome to my first Vex video. Before I start, I'd like to say, as a new channel, it would be very much appreciated if you could subscribe and like, of course if you liked the video. Also free to add a comment if you have any questions and I'll be sure to respond. Let's get on to the build because I've got quite the interesting one today with Sheriff Vex and her posse of spectres. This build is a crit build that can easily hit up to 75% crit chance, even on body shots, and we use these crits to scale our damage, apply bleed, and ricochet projectiles everywhere. It's a very fun build with solid defenses, amazing mobbing, and good bossing. Let's get on to the fun bit, this skill tree. In the red tree, we grab nothing, so let's move on and not waste our time. In the blue tree, we put our first 5 points into Sanguine Fiends. This is a very solid skill, it provides survivability, and it also keeps our minions alive so they can keep the enemies dead. 5 points in the blue tree also allow us to grab Coven. This gives us 10% crit chance whenever we summon a spectre and lasts for 20 seconds. It stacks up to 3 times and gives us a total of 30% crit chance. Seeing as we're a crit based build, this is incredibly important and where the bulk of our crit will be coming from. We will also grab Portents of Suffering for 35% increased status effect. While it might not seem important on the surface, because we are running bleed in the green tree, this is very useful and gives us a lot of damage. Next we grab Blood Sacrifice. This is very important for our build and allows us to keep our kill skills up, which allow us to keep our action skills up, which allows us to gain the extra crit from Coven. Talking about triggering kill skills, let's actually move on to one of the kill skills, being Grave Fiends. This gives Vex 12.5% increased damage as well as her minions and stacks up to 3 times for a total of 37.5% damage. There's not much that needs explaining here. Increased damage means enemies die faster, means we're very happy. Once we've grabbed that, we will grab Prismatic Ichor. Whenever Vex or her minions apply status effects, another random elemental status effect will be applied, dealing 150% of the initial status effect. Due to bleed scaling off our gun damage and with us being able to scale that, indirectly we can scale Prismatic Ichor as well as Portents of Suffering, scaling both. Once we've grabbed that, we will grab Keen Suffering, giving our status effect critical hit chance. Critical hit chance is one of the largest sources of increased damage multipliers in the game for any build, and giving it into status effects is amazing, especially considering our firmware will give us another 75% critical hit damage. I will note there is also a glitch going on right now where bleed will trigger itself and scale exponentially. However, we are not really abusing this, so if it does get nerfed, it won't affect us much. Last but certainly not least, all these points in the tree has provided us one more thing, the capstone being Heirloom. This is a very simple skill and it just gives our spectres a copy of Vex's gun. However, only one spectre can get it, but that is more than enough. Initially, I wasn't even building around it, but it turned out to be incredibly powerful, especially with the complex route, which absolutely destroys for mobbing. Now we move on to the green tree. First of all, we grab Guns and Needles. This is a kill skill that restores our Repkit cooldown by 21%. As mentioned before, in the blue tree we grab a skill which causes our kill skills to be triggered whenever a minion dies. Also, in the specialization, there is a skill that recovers our action skill cooldown whenever we use a Repkit for a sort of self-sustaining loop. However, we will need to add some extra cooldown in there just to get things going, so we will always have our minion buffs up and also our kill skill buffs up. Now we get onto the really fun skill, Bloodletter. This provides kinetic status effect whenever we deal critical hits, dealing 30% of our gun damage every second for 4 seconds with a 50% chance. However, that 50% chance is actually 100% due to a specialization that provides 10% increased crit chance whenever we score a critical hit, stacking up to 10 times for 100% increased crit chance. This means whenever we score a critical hit, we will deal a bleed guaranteed. Now this bleed is massive because on the surface it deals 120% of our gun damage over its duration. However, because we're scaling it further with increased kinetic damage further in the tree, crit chance and also status effect damage, this skill will account for a large chunk of our damage and be the way we kill bosses. Well, one of the ways, however I will get to that later in the gearing section. Getting onto the penultimate skill of the build, we will grab material components. This gives us increased kinetic damage and kinetic status effect damage. The kinetic status effect will apply exclusively to the bleed and just give us more damage, but the kinetic damage is where it gets interested, as if we're using a kinetic weapon, it will apply twice, first to the weapon hit and then second to the bleed damage, meaning it effectively double dips, so it multiplies onto itself. And finally, we will grab target prescience. Vex's gun damage gains critical hit chance. There's not much to explain, we're a crit build, this gives us crit chance, and it lets us top our crit chance out at 45% right now, but later on we will show you how we get the last 20%. Specializations for this build are incredibly important. Let's start off by putting 10 points into Sharpshooter and 10 points into Runner, so we can put 1 point into Daredevil, and grab Now with Caffeine, which reduces the action skill cooldown whenever a Repkit is activated by 25% due to guns and needles in the green tree. This will be active fairly often and provide us with our buffs such as 30% increased crit chance and the kill scales up as much as possible. Next up, we put 10 more points into Brute to get 1 point in Killer and grab the next most important skill, Contamination. This gives us up to 100% increased crit chance as long as we are dealing crits. This is integral for bleed, as this literally doubles the damage we get from it. Once we've done that, we will put 10 more points into Brute so we can grab Riddle You This. This will provide us up to 50% increased gun damage as long as we deal gun damage. Now the neat part about this is our Spectres will also trigger this, so even on slow firing weapons we will have these stacks up constantly, and 50% gun damage is very big for this build as we don't actually stack that much damage increases, and it's more specific multipliers such as the kinetic damage increase or the status effect crit chance or plus the status effect damage. This leaves us with one empty slot. In my instance, I've grabbed Bullet Train for a little bit extra gun damage and the ability to shoot while sprinting. However, this is because I don't have enough points to grab the two skills you really want to. I have a Compounding Afflictions for an increased damage multiplier, as we will have 20 stacks of bleed up on bosses, or Bullets Scared of Me if you want more defense, and the Best Defense if you want more damage. Weapons are fun, however you cannot have your dessert before you've eaten your dinner, and in this metaphorical sense our dinner is these 5 slots here. These are very important for the build, and let's start off with the Repkit. Usually Repkit's not very important for the build, however in this instance it provides us a lot of cooldown. What you're looking for is a Vladov Repkit or a Jakobs Repkit with the lowest cooldown possible. That also has the accelerator mod. This will help us get the action skill up consistently and make the build feel much smoother. Next up we have class mods. This isn't a very well rolled one, but it's still good enough. Really all you want is the extra bleed chance and that's it. However, there are other options such as the Alchemist, which will give us skills that increase our status effects, and the one-shot Undead Eye. This is very cool with sniper rifles and your Spectres, as the Spectres critical hits can trigger this, providing you a good switch up on bosses or if you want to use sniper rifles. 5 points there. This will give us 5 points in Bloodshot. While we don't take it on the tree, it does convert 50% of our HP into extra damage. Now we can continually trigger this with our Spectres as long as they're shooting an enemy with a sniper rifle and they get crit chance from the blue tree. So this will give us a source of consistent blood shots, which is very good for bosses and mobbing in fact, especially with the complex root, one of the best guns for this bit. Because it also converts our damage into kinetic damage, this means it will double dip with material components for incredibly large bleeds. However, if you do want to use this setup, you will need a class mod with as many points as possible in Bloodshot, and I wouldn't try this unless you have at least 4 points in the skill. Moving on, let's take a look at enhancements. Any Jakobs enhancements will do, however the best will be Piercer, at least for single target damage. There are other great options such as the Bounce Pass, which will double your amount of ricochets, Passives are actually important on this. This one gives me 50% crit, but stuff like gun damage and reload speed, mag size, they will be very important as we don't stack that much damage on the tree, so every little does help. For the last bit of an actually important gear, we'll get onto the shields. I've got three main options here. Let's start off with the onion. This is the defensive option, it's very nice. On armor segment break, you gain immunity for 2 seconds. There's not much to say about this. Yeah, immunity to damage. Who'd have thought? It's good for defense. Then we also have the Timekeeper's new shield. This is also another solid defensive shield, but it is a pain to farm, so I'm not going to recommend it. However, the one thing I will recommend is the fireworks, one that a lot of Rapper mains will know very well. The reason I recommend this is the missiles that spawn actually count as gun damage, so this will benefit from all your bonuses to crit chance. So that 7,436 damage will get multiplied by 2 by your crit damage, and then also by your crit damage. And what's even better, the fireworks can cause bleed, which you can see in the gameplay, absolutely destroys enemies for a cascade of destruction. For the final piece of gear, I'll talk about ordnance. We're not really scaling it, so I just kind of chose whatever has the best firmware, which in this instance was a Ravenfire I had in my stash. Speaking about firmware, this sounds like a brilliant transition to talk about it. First of all, 3 points into Deadeye. This is probably the best firmware in the game. Second rank, it gives you 25 crit damage, scales your damage, but third rank gives you up to 75% generic crit damage. That means it will scale the initial hit, that will trigger the bloodshot, and if that critical hits, it will also get scaled again by the crit damage. It is ridiculous. And for the last 2 points, we get Baker. It increases your shield capacity by 10%, which is kind of useless, but also reduces your Repkit cooldown duration. So we will get our Repkit back every 8.5 seconds instead of 10 seconds. This is very important for our cooldowns. Next up, I'm going to talk to you about my favourite part of these videos, the weapons. 4 slots means 4 uniques. While these aren't the only weapons you can use for the build, this is my favourite 4. Let's get to it. First up, we have the Rowan's Charge. This is a Jakobs assault rifle with a unique feature of shots having a 20% chance to be a critical hit. Combine that with our 65% crit chance, and this weapon will have a monstrous 85% crit chance, in addition to another effect of recovering 2 ammo whenever you crit. Combine that with the fact that it always has stickies, this weapon can be incredible for dealing damage and applying massive bleeds. This is an incredibly solid weapon, particularly for mobbing, and can be acquired from Directive O, who is in the Terminus District of Dominion, right here on your map. For our second weapon, we have the Rainbow Vomit. This is a Jakobs shotgun that, while attuned for kinetic, it actually deals elemental damage, with the specific elements changing with every new gun. This is the solid option for a deputy build because what is one without a shotgun? The unique thing and the important thing for us is it actually deals splash damage, which will help out on enemies such as ones with Vile Crystals, who this build does have trouble with. I will also state though, with Vile Crystals, the Fireworks Shield helps out incredibly for them. This gun can be obtained from Leader Willem in the Grindstone of the Wordy region of Cascadia Burns after you've completed a lengthy side quest starting with Enter the Electic. It's just here on your map. Now for our penultimate weapon. What is a gunslinger without a gun to sling? And in this instance we have a trusty sidearm called the 7th Sense. This is a simple gun, but that doesn't mean it's not powerful. The 7th Sense is a Jakobs pistol that spawns orbs when hitting enemies that attack them on reload. There's not much more to say than this is an amazing general purpose gun for the build where you just point and shoot, then enemies will crumble. You can get this gun after completing a side quest called Below the Surface in the Terminus District of Dominion, just here on your map. For our final weapon, we have definitely saved the best and my favourite for last. While this isn't a Jakobs weapon, it can spawn with a Jakobs part, meaning it will ricochet on critical hits. The complex root is a Maliwan sniper that has the unique effect of a very large and weirdly shaped projectile, and no, that is not an innuendo. This unique gimmick makes it perfect for the ricochet part, as on critical hits when it ricochets it can clear rooms. This gun is one of the best weapons for your Recon, and one of these guns can clear rooms without any help. Furthermore, this gun is no slouch for bossing. If you combine this with a Bloodshot class mod, this gun can get an incredible amount of flat damage that will annihilate bosses. This gun can be acquired in the Idolator's Noose region of the Fade Fields from Mimicron, just here on your map. For our last gun, I will throw in one more. Usually I don't like putting purple guns in because they don't have a dedicated drop source. However, in this instance, the 10-shot Jakobs shotgun with torque sticky parts is very common, so I'll recommend this. It's very good for bosses and you should acquire it, but keep an eye out for the crit damage as it does vary between guns, even if the other stats are similar. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed making it. If you've got any comments, leave it in the comment section below and have fun.